Now, many parents and prospective parents, wishing to adopt a child are usually held back by fear that stems from lack of knowledge of the adoption process. As KTN's Habiba Ali found out, there are many babies in children's homes waiting for foster parents to take that bold step. But what does it take to adopt? Take a look.
At only 2.5 years, Rita Wanjiku has become the center of her mother's life. Probably any other parents feel the same way. But Mercy's special connection with her daughter partly stems from what she went through to get the child.
It took a fairly long time. There were some issues that the Child Welfare Society of Kenya were trying to resolve, and they had stopped any activity during that time. For me to get to know that meant I had to wait for quite a while, and so I kept calling to find out how far the process had gone. But
the adoption process is a mystery for most potential adoptive parents. Even some of those who are knowledgeable still find the process quite complicated. It has 5 major steps. First is the orientation meeting, where you pay a visit to the Adoption Society for an inquiry. They explain to you the process of adoption and tell you the requirements as well. You get an application form to fill at this point. Next is the home meeting. This is to ascertain the family situation of the adoptive parents, security and safety of the area, the motivation behind the adoption, and the adopter's ideals and the expectations of the child. Third step is the matching and placement. There is introduction and bonding between the adoptive parents and the child at this stage. The child is then released to the care of the adopters if it's evaluated that bonding has been successful. Next is the fostering stage, where you showcase your parenting skills. The adopters are required to nurture the child for a mandatory period of 3 months. A social worker checks on the progress. After this, the legal process is initiated. The court has 3 processes. After this, the legal process is initiated. The court process has 3 phases.
The first time, it's you go to court for the court to appoint someone called a guardian ad litem. In Swahili, you could say rafiki wa mtoto. And guardian ad litem, that's not an English name. And the role of the guardian ad litem is to safeguard the interests of a child within a family.
The guardian ad litem is required to report on how the child is doing. At this stage, the Adoption Society is also required to do a fresh assessment of the parents and file a report.
Basically, is going through all those reports, and it is done in the sense that a representative of the society has to be there in court, and then also a representative from the Director of Children's Services Office and the guardian ad litem.
Then the judge gives a ruling.
The lawyer again goes back to the registry. That is when they get the order typed. Then after it is typed, it is taken to the registrar of births and deaths. That is the one that gives the birth certificate.
The lawyer then serves the Adoption Society with the certificate, bringing to an end the adoption process. But what happens to a family that cannot afford a lawyer and yet would want to adopt?
Then we organize what we call self-representation trainings. This is a training that we organize for our adoptive parents who feel, for one reason or another, they may be a bit constrained to go and see a lawyer and take up the services of the lawyer in formalizing the adoption process.
According to Peru, the requirements one needs to meet to adopt a baby are not very restrictive. You must have been married for at least 3 years if a couple, be between the ages of 25 and 65, and be at least 21 years older than the child. Other requirements are a comprehensive medical report, 3 people who know the applicants well, a letter from the chief to confirm where the applicant resides, bank statements, pay slips, and assets to prove that there is income in the family. Also needed is a letter from a religious body and 2 mandatory full-size recent photos. Interestingly, the photo is to match the looks of the baby with that of the adoptive parent. A totally normal single man is not allowed to adopt a girl. The same applies for a totally normal single lady. Reasons?
Assuming I'm 25 today and I get to adopt as a single man, I adopt a child that is 4 years and I start living with the child. By the time I get to 40, she'll have grown up and I'm not married. And I may start thinking, after all, this is not my child.
Peru, however, says that 95% of adoption applications in the country are successful. The stigma that was previously associated with adoption is slowly fading. The practice is becoming increasingly common, with more and more people coming forward to adopt every day. Habiba Ali, KTN, Nairobi.